My beloved child. Stop scrolling for just a moment. Some stories arrive by chance, while others seem to find the exact heart they were meant to reach. Imagine, for these next few moments, that you are listening to an ancient story whispered from the gates of heaven itself, a fictional tale of hope, courage, and a decision powerful enough to change two lives forever. Stay with this story until the very end, because what begins as silence is slowly becoming something impossible to ignore. In this imagined world, where archangels watch over the journeys of human hearts without taking away their freedom, one light has begun shining differently. It is not brighter because someone has become perfect. It is brighter because someone has finally reached the moment they believed would never come. For a long time, they carried uncertainty like a heavy cloak. They questioned every feeling, every memory, every possibility. They wondered if waiting was wisdom or simply fear wearing a peaceful disguise. But tonight, something has shifted deep within them, and heaven itself seems to pause as if waiting to see what choice will follow. There are moments that change a life without making a sound. No thunder rolls across the sky. No crowd gathers to witness them. The greatest transformations often happen in complete silence, hidden inside a single human heart. That is exactly where this story begins. Your special person has reached such a moment. The outside world has not noticed. Friends continue laughing. The days continue passing. The sun still rises and sets. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm of life, an extraordinary decision has quietly taken root. The archangel in this fictional tale walks through a magnificent hall where every sincere hope appears as a glowing thread of light. Some threads fade because they are abandoned. Others grow stronger because someone refuses to stop believing. Among countless lights, one thread has begun to shine with remarkable clarity. It belongs to someone who spent far too long running from their own heart. They convinced themselves that time would erase their feelings. They believed distance would bring peace. They hoped silence would become easier than honesty. But the opposite happened. Every passing day only made the truth impossible to escape. Pause here for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of a bridge you've been afraid to cross for years. You know your future waits on the other side, but your feet refuse to move. That bridge has become the symbol of this person's heart. They have stood before it countless times. Each time they almost stepped forward, fear gently pulled them back. Not because they lacked love. Because they feared losing the possibility of tomorrow by speaking too soon today. In this imagined story, heaven never forces a heart to choose. Instead, the archangel quietly watches as courage grows one small decision at a time. There is something beautiful about genuine courage. It rarely appears suddenly. It grows in whispers. It grows after long nights of reflection. It grows after memories become too meaningful to ignore. And once it begins growing, even fear struggles to stop it forever. Your special person did something recently that no one else knows about. They revisited moments they had hidden away from themselves. Old conversations. Quiet memories. Tiny acts of kindness that seemed insignificant when they first happened. They discovered something surprising. None of those memories had faded. In fact, they had become even more precious with time. Every smile remembered. Every encouraging word. Every shared silence. Instead of disappearing, they had quietly built a foundation strong enough to support a life-changing choice. The archangel observed this discovery with gentle hope. Not because the future was guaranteed, but because truth had finally become stronger than denial. For so long this person kept asking, "What if I am wrong?" But now another question echoes louder inside them. What if I spend the rest of my life wondering what might have happened if I had simply been honest? That question has become impossible to silence. Stay with this story. The most important part has not yet been revealed. One evening, while everything around them appeared completely ordinary, they experienced an unexpected stillness. The world outside continued exactly as before, yet inside, everything felt different. It was not excitement. It was not fear. It was clarity. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped arguing with their own heart. They stopped searching for reasons to wait. They stopped inventing excuses. Instead, they accepted a truth that had quietly followed them through every season. Their feelings were real. Not temporary. Not imagined. Not passing. Real. That realization did not frighten them anymore. It freed them. In this fictional narrative, the archangel smiled, for there are moments when the greatest miracle is not something supernatural at all. Sometimes the greatest miracle is a heart finally becoming honest with itself. That quiet honesty carries a power greater than pride, greater than fear, and greater than uncertainty. But the story becomes even more mysterious. Because making a decision in your heart is only the beginning. Living that decision is another journey entirely. There remained one final obstacle. It was invisible to everyone except the person carrying it. They feared that too much time had already passed. They wondered whether missed opportunities could ever become new beginnings. They questioned whether silence had already written an ending they never wanted. The archangel understood this fear well. Many hearts believe they have arrived too late simply because they cannot see what tomorrow still holds. Yet tomorrow has a remarkable way of surprising those who refuse to surrender hope. Another quiet night arrived. They stood beneath a sky filled with countless stars. Each star reminded them that light travels incredible distances before reaching human eyes. Perhaps courage works the same way. Perhaps some decisions take longer to arrive because they must travel through seasons of growth before they are ready to be lived. That thought changed everything. For the first time, they no longer wished to escape their feelings. They wished to honor them. The decision was no longer about avoiding regret. It became about embracing truth. That single shift transformed their entire outlook. The archangel watched as the glowing thread of hope became brighter than ever before. The halls of heaven in this imagined story seemed almost expectant, as though countless unseen witnesses understood that one quiet decision inside a single human heart could eventually influence many lives. Still, one question remains unanswered. What exactly was the life-changing decision? It was not merely choosing love. It was not simply deciding to speak. It was something deeper. Something that required leaving behind an old version of themselves forever. Before they could take the next step, they had to let go of the fear that had quietly ruled them for so long. And tonight, for the very first time, they believe they are finally ready to do it. But the first action they take after making that decision will surprise even the archangel watching over this fictional journey. That unforgettable moment has not happened yet. The night felt different. Not because the stars shone more brightly. Not because the wind carried some unmistakable sign. It felt different because, for the first time in many seasons, they stopped asking heaven to change someone else's heart and quietly began asking for the courage to change their own. In this imagined story, the archangel stood upon a quiet hill overlooking countless lights stretching across the earth. Every light represented a choice waiting to be made. Some lights flickered with uncertainty. Others glowed with quiet confidence. Yet one light had begun burning with a steady brilliance unlike before. It belonged to the one who had finally made their life-changing decision. But the decision was not what anyone expected. It was not simply, "I will tell them how I feel." It reached much deeper. It was, "I will no longer allow fear to decide the direction of my life." That single promise echoed through every corner of their heart. Fear had stolen enough time. Fear had delayed enough conversations. Fear had rewritten enough beautiful possibilities. No more. The archangel smiled gently. In this fictional tale, heaven rejoices whenever a heart chooses truth over comfort, because every honest step creates room for hope to grow. Stay with this story. The next chapter changes everything. Over the following days, something remarkable began happening. Nothing around them appeared different. The same streets. The same mornings. The same responsibilities. Yet every ordinary moment now carried extraordinary purpose. Instead of wondering what might happen years from now, they began asking a new question. What can I do today that my future self will never regret? The answer came quietly. Be honest. Be kind. Be courageous. Those three simple thoughts became the rhythm of every new sunrise. Still, one final burden remained. A memory. A painful one. Long ago they believed they had missed their chance forever. One misunderstood conversation. One opportunity left unfinished. One goodbye that never felt complete. For years they replayed that moment, wishing they had spoken differently. Wishing they had stayed a little longer. Wishing they had trusted their heart instead of their fear. Within this imagined story, the archangel understood that regret often disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers, "Protect yourself." But hope answers with a gentler voice. "Begin again." Those words settled deeply within them. Begin again. Not by pretending the past never happened. Not by demanding perfect outcomes. But by allowing honesty to become stronger than hesitation. Everything inside them began changing after that. The weight they had carried became lighter. The uncertainty that once filled every quiet moment slowly gave way to peace. Not because they knew how the story would end. Because they finally understood that peace does not come from controlling tomorrow. It comes from living truthfully today. The archangel watched as another thread of light appeared beside the first. It shimmered softly across the heavens. 2 journeys. 2 hearts. Moving toward a moment neither could fully see. Neither realized how close they had come to crossing paths once again. There had already been unexpected moments. A familiar place visited on the same afternoon. A conversation almost shared. A message nearly sent. Life seemed to be arranging small encounters that ended only moments before they could happen. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps, within this fictional story, they were reminders that some chapters require patience before they can be fully written. Then came the morning that changed everything. It began like every other day. No extraordinary sunrise. No dramatic announcement. Only quiet determination. They looked at themselves with complete honesty. For the first time, they did not ask whether they were worthy of love. They asked whether they were ready to live with courage. The answer surprised them. Yes. Not perfectly. Not fearlessly. But sincerely. That was enough. The life-changing decision was no longer just a thought. It had become part of who they were. They picked up something they had hidden away for a very long time. A draft. Words never shared. Thoughts never spoken. Feelings carefully protected behind silence. They read every line. Some sentences made them smile. Others reminded them how much they had grown. Then, instead of putting those words away again, they whispered. No more hiding. In that quiet moment, the archangel looked toward the horizon as dawn painted the sky with gold. Even heaven, within this imagined tale, seemed to hold its breath. Because the next choice would no longer happen only inside one heart. It would reach into the world. A conversation was now inevitable. A truth would finally leave the safety of silence. Yet there was one final detail they still did not know. Someone else had already noticed the change. Someone unexpected had seen the quiet transformation taking place. And that person's words, spoken at exactly the right moment, would become the final spark that gave them the courage to take the step they had postponed for far too long. But who that person is, and what they are about to reveal, belongs to the next part of this story. Morning arrived with an unusual stillness. Nothing about the world appeared extraordinary. The birds greeted the dawn as they always had. The sunlight slipped gently through the windows. People hurried through their routines without realizing that, somewhere among them, a heart had quietly crossed the line between hesitation and resolve. In this fictional story, the archangel looked upon the earth with patient hope. Heaven did not celebrate because every question had been answered. It celebrated because one soul had finally chosen courage over endless uncertainty. Yet the greatest surprise had not come from your special person. It came from someone they never expected. An old friend noticed the change first. "You seem different lately," they said with a gentle smile. Not happier. Not louder. Just lighter. Those simple words lingered long after the conversation ended. They realized they had stopped carrying the exhausting burden of pretending they felt nothing. Even before speaking a single honest word aloud, their heart had already begun to heal. The archangel understood why. Truth has a remarkable way of bringing peace long before it changes circumstances. That evening, your special person found themselves standing beneath an open sky once again. In the silence, memories returned, not as painful reminders, but as stepping stones leading toward a future they had once been too afraid to imagine. They remembered every unexpected smile. Every conversation that lingered in their thoughts. Every quiet moment that had somehow become unforgettable. For years they believed those memories were holding them back. Now they understood something entirely different. Those memories had been preparing them. Preparing them to become someone brave enough to love without hiding. Stay with this story. The next moment changes everything. In this imagined tale, the archangel walked through a magnificent garden where every flower bloomed only when nourished by hope. Some blossoms opened quickly. Others waited through long seasons before revealing their beauty. The human heart is much the same. Sometimes it takes countless quiet days before one extraordinary decision finally blossoms into action. That action was closer than ever. Your special person opened the unfinished message they had saved so many times before. They read every sentence slowly. This time, they did not search for mistakes. They searched for honesty. Several lines disappeared. Others were rewritten. Eventually, only a few simple words remained. Not dramatic. Not perfect. Simply true. They looked at those words for a long time. Their hands trembled slightly. Their heartbeat grew louder. For one brief moment, fear returned. What if nothing changes? Then another voice answered from deep within. What if everything changes because you finally chose honesty? The question remained suspended in the silence. The archangel smiled. Within this fictional story, courage rarely arrives by removing fear. It arrives by teaching the heart to keep moving anyway. Just as they were about to take the next step, something unexpected happened. Their phone lit up. It was not the person they hoped to hear from. It was someone who had quietly observed their journey from a distance. The message contained only one sentence. Life is too short to leave your most important words unspoken. No explanation. No advice beyond that. Only one sentence. Yet it felt as though those words had arrived at the exact moment they were needed. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps, within this imagined tale, it was simply another reminder that hope often arrives in ordinary ways. The archangel watched as the final walls around their heart began to crumble. Not with noise. Not with force. But with peace. For the first time in years, they no longer wished to protect themselves from disappointment more than they wished to live honestly. That realization became the true life-changing decision. Everything else would simply flow from it. Still, one final mystery remained hidden. Unknown to your special person, another heart had also been changing. Someone else had been carrying unanswered questions. Someone else had been wondering whether silence had already written the ending. Neither realized they were moving toward the same moment from opposite directions. The distance between them had become smaller than either could imagine. Only one conversation now stood between uncertainty and clarity. Only one honest exchange remained before the truth, hidden for so long, could finally step into the light. The archangel lifted their gaze toward the horizon, where the first stars began to appear once more. The next chapter had already begun. Neither heart could stop it now. Because before another sunrise arrived, an unexpected encounter would place both of them face to face. And the very first word spoken would reveal something neither had anticipated.